Out of all the dangers faced in the Twilight Saga, few are more feared than the Volturi. With their arsenal of deadly powers and their supposed dedication to the law, they are respected and feared by all vampires. No immortal dares to break the law, lest the Volturi give them a premature end. Of course, it isn't just their swelling ranks or their lack of forgiveness which makes them terrifying. The Volturi coven is replete with those who possess gifts, with one of the leaders, Arrow, counting himself among such a number. However, no vampires within the Volturi are more feared than the so-called witch twins, Jane and Alec. While Alec can immobilize his victims by cutting off each of their senses, effectively blinding and deafening them, Jane's power is even more insidious in its way. Both twins can make a vampire useless, but where Alec provides a lack of feeling, Jane provides too much, in the form of excruciating pain which cripples her foes. Just for fear of Jane alone, vampires will fall into compliance. This is startling to those who glimpse Jane for the first time, as she has the appearance of a small and pretty young girl. Delicate and cherubic, she hardly looks dangerous, though all vampires who have encountered her know she's a force to be reckoned with, and among the jewels of the Volturi. Of course, like all vampires, Jane and Alec were once human. Though it can be hard to like them, their backstories, at least, are sympathetic. Before we continue, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel, I rant about fantasy books, discuss characters and lore, share my bookish opinion, and offer the occasional writing advice. If any of that sounds like your cup of blood, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Friday. The origins of Jane and Alec are surprisingly tragic, but they grew up in a superstitious age. Even while human, their abilities were clear, something which, rather than helping them, marked them out as witches to the medieval village they grew up in. Though twins, Jane was born first, making her technically the eldest of the pair. The powers of the children were such that word spread of their talent. A nomad, on meeting Arrow, told him about the children. Even as toddlers, the pair were gifted. However, Arrow was nothing if not law-abiding. Already, the creation of immortal children was forbidden, and so Arrow made up his mind to return when the twins had grown up. Unfortunately, Arrow wasn't allowed to wait as long as he might have liked to change the twins. Though their powers weren't as pronounced while human, they were still obvious to those who lived with them. If Jane or Alec were angered, those who had hurt them had bad luck. Conversely, those who were kind to the twins would receive good luck. But whatever positive side their powers had were overlooked. Gripped by fear, the village decided to sentence Jane and Alec to burn at the stake. It was 800 AD, and the twins weren't completely spared from their fate. By mere chance, rumor reached Arrow of what was to become of the twins. Though he rushed to their aid, killing those who would have murdered them, he was nearly too late. The twins had already experienced the pain of the flames, which in turn altered their powers. While Alec's abilities were relieving in their way, preventing his targets from feeling anything, let alone pain, Jane's were driven by fury. Hating the villagers who had condemned her, and remembering all too well the pain of burning, Jane reflected her suffering onto others. Though Jane's gift doesn't cause true pain, acting as a psychological weapon, it nevertheless instills fear in her targets. Specifically, Jane's power mimics the experience of being burned alive, mirroring Jane's own experience on the pyre. Turned between the ages of 12 and 13, Jane and Alec were nearly too young. However, their injuries were such that they had to be changed then or die. Bending his rules slightly, Arrow happily took the preteens into his care. It didn't take long for others to fear them. Jane and Alec even developed a reputation for being the most powerful vampires in existence. After 10 years of living with Aro, the twins were allowed to put their abilities to the test. Devastating the Romanians' Coven of Hundreds, they proved the effectiveness of their powers. Though people came to fear Jane the most, Alec was, in his way, more deadly. Though Alec's power didn't cause pain, his ability to make whole armies useless couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, Jane could only target one victim, while Alec could attack multiple targets. Both were effective, depending on the situation. As Jane could attack immediately, she was best used if a single person lunged towards the Volturi. However, when it came to wide-scale battles, Alec was most effective. As long as he had time to produce the transparent vapor, which was his speciality, he could render an army helpless. As the centuries passed, Jane grew more sadistic. Her personality comparable to that of Caius, she became used to being the center of attention. Widely feared and prized by Aro above all others, she grew to have a high opinion of herself and her talents. She even developed a jealous streak, coming to despise those Aro seemed to like more than her. As such, she felt especially bitter towards Alice and Bella, owing to the interest Aro expressed in them. While Alec was quiet, Jane delighted in any opportunities to hurt others. Only Aro could rein her in, and though she always followed his orders, she would do so reluctantly. By the time a newborn army was attacking near Forks, Jane had taken a more active approach than her brother. Alec remained behind, while Jane, accompanied by a number of fellow Coven members, held a meeting with Victoria and Riley. Speaking from within the confines of a little cottage, she was, unbeknownst to her, overheard by Bree Tanner and Diego, members of Riley's newborn coven. The Volturi, according to their laws, should have destroyed the newborn army. Instead, out of a desire to see Carlisle's coven hurt, the Volturi instead gave Victoria a 5-day time limit to fulfill her goals. In this instance, Jane, acting on behalf of Aro, revealed the Volturi's corrupt side. Moreover, Bree, on hearing that one of the Cullens had mind-reading talents, relayed the truth to Edward through her thoughts. In this way, Edward became privy to the Volturi's true intentions, just before Jane had Bree destroyed. Though there was little Edward could do, this lack of justice would foreshadow the Volturi's later attack. Desperate for Alice and Bella to join their ranks, they would try to decimate the coven, on the guise of serving justice, until only those they wanted remained. Fortunately for the Cullens, the all-powerful twins were finally thwarted by Bella. A newborn vampire, Bella was capable of creating a shield which could protect her allies. In this way, Jane and Alec, for the first time, were made useless. Alec's vapor couldn't penetrate Bella's shield, and Jane's attempts to inflict pain were rebuffed. Having already developed a hatred of Bella for Bella's resistance to her gift, Jane's hatred deepened. Realizing they'd have to actually fight on equal terms, with the potential for loss, the Volturi withdrew. Aro secretly grateful, with the appearance of the hybrid Nahual, to have a valid reason to relent, though not shown in the books, a potential future in which Aro, along with Jane and Alec, die, was shown to him by Alice in the film, further encouraging Aro to back off. In conclusion, of all the characters in the series, Jane and Alec are easily some of the most interesting. Their deadly powers are especially intriguing, and their backstory is surprisingly sympathetic, given the characters' later prominence as feared villains. That they are essentially still children is also fascinating, given not only how feared they are, But how close Arrow came to breaking his own law? One has to wonder if the children were changed too young. If Jane, in being frozen at such an impressionable age, would have developed into such a sadist if her life had gone differently. If the children had been allowed to grow up and to transform without pain, how different would they have been? Moreover, there's the idea that a person's powers aren't fixed. Though one has to be born with psychic talent, the gift a vampire ultimately develops, as evidenced by Jane and Alec, can be altered by their experiences. This then raises the question, if the children hadn't been burned at the stake, what would their powers have been? How differently would they have manifested? It's possible the twins might have developed the same power. At the same time, each had the same experience, suggesting their personalities had as much to do with the shaping of their powers as anything. With that in mind, their abilities might have differed from each other too. Whatever the case, Jane and Alec remain some of the most memorable of the saga's villains, invoking more terror than even Arrow himself. A short film has been produced exploring the backstory of these terrifying twins. But I'd personally love to see a whole series or feature-length film covering the lives the twins led, not only among the Volturi, but as human children. Questions still surround the twins. Whatever Jane's personality, she remains capable of love, at least as regards her affection for her brother. And Alec, being of a quieter disposition, is even more mysterious. Would you like to see Jane and Alec's story explored in greater detail? Did their backstory surprise you? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.